One dahlia on this list produces stems that wholesale florists price at nearly $4 each. The tuber that grew it shipped for $11. Another is the single most requested flower in the American wedding industry. You can grow dozens of them from one tuber that costs less than lunch. One was bred in a Welsh garden over a century ago. Its foliage is so dark that landscape designers use it as an anchor plant. The tuber costs about $12. And the last one is not the biggest or the flashiest. It is the one that pays for itself first. Premium dahlia tubers from breeder-exclusive lines sell for $28 to $50 each. Collections of new introductions run over $150. But every dahlia on this list looks like it belongs in a $60 arrangement, and none of them cost more than $15 to grow. Here are 7. Number 1. Penhill Dark Monarch. The first bloom stretches 8 to 12 inches across. Hold your hands apart at dinner plate width. Now picture petals the color of crushed raspberries blending into smoked salmon, each one twisting and curling so no two lie the same way. It is a giant informal decorative. The petals do not sit flat. They roll and twist and catch light at different angles, so the bloom shifts color as you walk around it. From one side it looks plum, from the other, coral. The effect is closer to a hand-painted ceramic than a flower. In the garden, it reaches 4 to 5 feet tall and blooms from midsummer straight through to frost, zones 3 through 10. Full sun, 6 to 8 hours minimum. Plant the tuber 4 to 6 inches deep after your last frost date, once the soil hits 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Same timing as tomatoes. Stake it at planting time. This one gets tall and the blooms are heavy enough to snap an unsupported stem in the rain. Longfield Gardens ships a 2-tuber clump for around $13 on sale. $13 for a flower that stops people mid-conversation on the sidewalk. Number 2. Café au Lait. The wedding industry did not choose this dahlia because it was affordable. They chose it because nothing else looks like it. Café au Lait produces 8 to 10-inch blooms in shades of creamy blush, champagne, and dusty peach. The color shifts depending on temperature and sunlight. Cool mornings push the petals toward ivory. Hot afternoons pull them toward warm pink. No two blooms on the same plant open the same shade. Aaron Benzakine's Floret Flowers in Washington's Skagit Valley calls Café au Lait their most requested wedding flower. Flower farmers across the Pacific Northwest build entire rows around it because florists ask for it by name. 3.5 to 4 feet tall. 80 to 100 days from planting to first bloom. Pinch the center shoot above the 3rd or 4th leaf set when the plant reaches 12 inches. That single pinch doubles your stem count for the season. But there is one thing to know before you order this one. Vase life is about 5 days. That is short for a cut flower. In the garden, it is spectacular. In a vase for a Saturday dinner party, it is perfect. But if you want blooms that last a full week on the kitchen counter, keep watching. The last dahlia on this list does that and more. Tuber prices range from around $12 at smaller flower farms to nearly $25 at Eden Brothers for a single tuber. At the lower end, that is $12 for a flower that florists build $150 bridal bouquets around. If a dahlia on this list has already surprised you with how little it actually costs, leave the name in the comments. And if you want to see what happens when catalogs get the sizes wrong on dinner plate dahlias, that video is right here, now. The reason these dahlias cost so little has nothing to do with quality. It has everything to do with time. Penhill Dark Monarch has been in cultivation for decades. Café au lait even longer. When a dahlia variety has been grown and divided for 30 or 50 or 90 years, every grower who splits tubers in the fall adds more to the total supply. Supply climbs, price drops. The flowers do not get worse, they get cheaper. New introductions work the opposite way. A breeder releases a handful of tubers from a single cross. Demand is immediate and supply is tiny. One tuber from a breeder exclusive line can cost $28 to $50. A collection of 3 or 4 new releases can run over $150. Swan Island Dahlias in Canby, Oregon, the nation's largest dahlia grower for nearly 100 years, has sold out its entire new introduction catalog in under 24 hours. The blooms in those collections are beautiful, but standing 6 feet away in a garden, they do not look meaningfully different from the classics that cost a fifth as much. That gap is the entire point of this video. Every dahlia from here forward was bred decades ago and ships for a fraction of what it looks like it should. One thing to know before we go further. If you garden in zones 4 through 7, dahlias are not perennial for you. After the first frost blackens the foliage, you dig the tubers and dry them for a few days. Then store them somewhere cool and dark at 40 to 50 degrees through winter. A cardboard box with peat moss in an unheated garage works. It takes an afternoon once a year. That is the trade-off for growing flowers this dramatic at these prices. Number 3. Thomas Edison. The name on this tuber is not a coincidence. It was introduced in 1929, and breeders named it for the inventor. Nearly a century later, it is still the definitive deep purple dahlia. Nobody has topped it. The blooms run 6 to 8 inches across in a royal purple so deep it borders on black in the shade. Move it into direct sun, and the color opens up to a rich violet that almost seems to generate its own light. There is nothing subtle about this flower. Set it in a vase next to lighter dahlias or white garden roses and it takes over. Nothing else in the garden has that depth of color. 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Full sun. Standard dahlia care. American Meadows ships a 2-tuber clump for around $12 to $14. A dahlia introduced the same year as the stock market crash, still outperforming everything that came after it. Number 4. Labyrinth. This is the dahlia that stops people mid-scroll in every online growing group. The blooms look like someone dipped them in watercolors and forgot to stop. It is an informal decorative with 5 to 8 inch blooms in peach, coral, pink, and old rose that swirl together differently on every single petal. The color runs from warm copper at the center to blush pink at the tips, and the petals twist and ruffle so the gradient catches light unevenly. It photographs like an oil painting. Scroll through any dahlia group online, and Labyrinth is the one people ask about by name when they see it in someone else's garden. 3 to 4 feet tall. Full sun. Standard spacing. Longfield Gardens and Eden Brothers both stock it under $15. Smaller specialty farms charge closer to $20, so check the larger retailers first. One look at a photograph is usually enough to get this one into the cart. Every dahlia so far has been large. 8 inches, 10 inches, 12. The next one is 4. Number 5. Bishop of Llandaff. This dahlia does not earn its place on this list because of bloom size. It earns it because of what happens below the flowers. The foliage is so dark it looks nearly black. Deep bronze leaves, closer to mahogany than green, and against them, the blooms glow like embers set on charcoal. The flowers are scarlet. Single to semi-double with an open center that shows a ring of golden stamens. Small and brilliant above foliage that makes everything around it look pale by comparison. This variety was selected in 1924 by Fred Treseter, a nurseryman in Cardiff, Wales. He named it for Joshua Pritchard Hughes, the Bishop of Llandaff, whose cathedral stands half a mile from the garden where the plant was first grown. It won the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Merit in 1928. That was almost 100 years ago. Growers still have not found a dark foliage dahlia that matches it. Here is what no catalog mentions. That dark foliage is the single most recognizable signal of a designed garden. Landscape architects pay a premium for dark leaf plants and use them as anchors in mixed borders. In the perennial world, plants with foliage this dark cost $20 to $40 for a single-gallon pot. This dahlia gives you that same look for about $10 to $14 a tuber, and it blooms from midsummer through frost. It is also one of the best pollinator dahlias you can grow. The open center gives bees and hoverflies direct access to pollen and nectar. The big dinner plates are stunning, but their packed petal structure makes it hard for pollinators to reach anything useful. Bishop of Llandaff does both. Beauty and function in the same plant. 2.5 to 3 feet tall. Full sun. Zones 3 through 10 with winter storage below Zone 8. It does not need staking. Number 6. Kelvin Floodlight. Yellow dahlias get overlooked. Too common. Too safe. Too much like a grocery store bouquet left on the counter too long. Kelvin Floodlight is none of those things. The blooms open 8 to 10 inches across, sometimes pushing past 12 inches, in a brilliant, clean yellow, with more in common with a searchlight than a sunflower. It holds the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit, which is given only to plants that perform reliably in real garden conditions over multiple years of trialing. That award is not decorative, it is data. But here is what separates it from every other large dahlia on this list. Most dinner plate varieties produce their biggest blooms early in the season, then the flowers shrink gradually as the plant burns through its energy reserves. Kelvin Floodlight does not do that. The late September blooms come in at the same size as the July ones. For a cutting garden that needs to look full and generous through October, that consistency is worth more than another color option. 3 to 4 feet tall, full sun, zones 3 through 10. Longfield Gardens lists a 2-tuber clump at around $11 on sale. $11 for 4 months of blooms that hold their size. Number 7. Cornell. The final dahlia on this list is not a dinner plate. It is not going to stop traffic from 20 feet away. The blooms are 3 to 4 inches across, perfectly round, packed tight with petals that spiral inward like a crimson pomander ball. Cornell is a ball dahlia, and ball dahlias are where the economics of this entire video come together. Ball and pompon forms last longer in a vase than any other dahlia type. It is what cut flower farmers report consistently. Cornell specifically holds at least a week after cutting. The big dinner plates, including café au lait, give you 3 to 5 days at best. Cornell gives you 7 or more. The petals are dense and almost impossible to bruise, which means they survive being cut, transported, carried inside, and arranged without dropping a single petal. Now here is the number this video has been building toward. A single cornel plant produces dozens of cutting stems from July through frost. At wholesale, premium dahlia stems run between $3.50 and $4.70 each. A conservative count of 30 stems from one plant at $3.50 per stem comes to over $105 of cut flower value, from a tuber that shipped for about $12. That is not what the tuber costs. That is what it returns. 4 feet tall, full sun, zones 3 through 10 with winter storage in colder zones. Longfield Gardens carries it. Floret stocks it. If you prefer warmer tones, look for Cornell Bronze. Same bulletproof form in a sunset amber that pairs well with café au lait in a vase. If your local garden center has never heard of ball dahlias, DahliaAddict.com will show you exactly which farms have either one available right now. 7 dahlias. 7 tubers totaling somewhere around $75 to $85 depending on the retailer and the time of year. From those 7 plants, a cutting garden that can produce hundreds of dollars worth of blooms between July and the first hard frost. But here is the part that matters more than any of the math. Order in the fall. November through February is when dahlia growers open their catalogs and list new stock. Café au Lait sells out before spring most years. Labyrinth goes fast. Thomas Edison disappears early. If you are watching this in summer, bookmark this video and come back in November. Set a reminder on your phone. The tubers ship in spring, timed to your hardiness zone, not a list. A cutting garden that pays for itself by August. If you want to see the 8 dinner plate dahlias that catalogs measure wrong, that video is linked below.